Good afternoon, everyone, and very warm welcome to those who are joining us today. My name is Furqan Ahmed, and I have an absolute pleasure and honor of moderating this webinar. Uh, and very warm welcome to our respected speakers, guests, participants, and viewers to today's international webinar. On behalf of SARIM, I sincerely thank you all for joining us. In terms of our introduction, because our esteemed speaker, Father Temmo, is joining us for the first time, South Asia Research Institute for Minorities is a research-based organization working to promote minority rights, equality, religious freedom, social inclusion, and human rights across South Asia. Through research, webinars like these, podcasts, we also have a publication. We also have Journal of South Asia Research Journal, Research for Minorities, Research Journal for Minorities, and awareness activities. SARIM provides a platform for important voices and discussions on issues affecting marginalized and minority communities. Today's webinar and theme is also a commemoration of the Day on human rights related to freedom of religion or belief. This day reminds us that freedom of religion or belief is a fundamental human rights. Every person, be it from any religion, color, or race, or ethnicity, should have the freedom to follow, practice, change, or express their religion or belief without any fear or discrimination, or any violence and persecution as well. So the significance of this day goes beyond remembrance and celebration as well. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the challenges that are still faced by religious and belief communities, not only in South Asia, but across the world. And to ask a very more important question, that what more can be done to safeguard, to protect their rights and relevance when violence, hate speech, discrimination, and intolerance based on religion or belief continue to affect individuals and communities. Once again, thank you so much, our eminent speakers, for joining us. It is my it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers. We are grateful for Reverend Father Shimshon Temmo. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Our first speaker, Your Eminence, is the Reverend Father, an Orthodox priest and language educator based in Dallas. He is also associated with the Australian Middle Eastern Alliance Christian Alliance Council from Australia. Sir, we look forward to your perspective on religious freedom, faith, communities, and challenges faced by people because of their religious identity or belief as well. And our second speaker, Professor Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed, who is from Bangladesh, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Alternatives. His work and engagement in the region provides important perspectives on alternatives, social inclusion, and addressing challenges affecting communities. He has authored numerous uncountable books, monographs, research articles, and have appeared on quite a number of international platforms as a renowned scholar. So we welcome all of you, sir, to this platform, and I would like to give the floor to our eminent speaker, Shimshon Temmo, as well. Thank you.
Interested to hear what you have to say also. The work of SARIM, I apologize if I've not pronounced this SARIM, if that's what it's pronounced, SARIM. They do a wonderful job in documenting and defending the minority communities. I know it's a difficult work, but I know very often people don't use these words. Thank you. So a big thank you to this organization for putting the voices of minorities and just getting the conversation started. It's very important, and I'm grateful today to sit amongst you all. My name is, as you've mentioned, Furqan, my name is Reverend Father Shimshon Temmo. I'm a priest of the Assyrian Church of the East, or Church of the East, and I serve here in Sydney. So I work for an institute in Dallas, but I'm based in Sydney, Australia. So very, very big difference. It's almost 9:30 p.m. here. I've served in communities as a priest, as a ministry in Greece, Belgium, England as well, and I've served our people in those respected lands. But as today, I speak on behalf of the Assyrian Supreme Council, in which I'm a co-founder, secretary, and a public officer as well. Now, for those who don't know who we are, the Assyrians, we are a Semitic people indigenous to Mesopotamia. And I want to make this clear. We are not Syrian that belong to Syria. We are Assyrian, in which we belong to northern Iraq. So we are based in northern Iraq, southeast Syria, and also southeast Turkey as well. So that whole region is where my people dwell. I'm sure you've heard of the people of Nineveh or the Ninevites. It's very famous, of course, within scripture and other biblical texts. Historians have spoken about us, and yeah, so we're still alive, and a lot of people think we don't exist anymore, but that's not the case. The language that we speak is Aramaic. Of course, it's the language of Jesus Christ, our Lord, and his disciples. And this is what we use in our native tongue daily within our homes and houses, and also within liturgical services. It's the first nation to accept Christianity. I'm sure you are well aware of this, and they carried the gospel along the Silk Road as far as India and Pakistan, and all the way to China and Japan. This is very good information as well. I belong to the church that is founded by 3 apostles. Of course, Thomas, one of the 12, who preached through Mesopotamia and Persia on his way to India. Also Adde, we have Adde, we cannot forget Adde, which is Thaddeus. I'm sure you're well aware in Greek, one of the 70 who was sent to Edessa to mission King Abgar of Armenia. And he preserved the doctrine of Adde. So Thaddeus is Adde, and that's how we know him in Aramaic. So they missioned Mesopotamia, and something very interesting and very satisfying for the audience is we have a very deep connection to India. I'm sure you've heard of the Knanaya Christians. Now, those families that came from Mesopotamia, they were my people. They were my people. Roughly 300 AD from northern Mesopotamia, they traveled from my place all the way to India to revive the dying church. Of course, we know that Thomas, the apostle, landed in India roughly 52 AD, but there was that gap where the church was dying, and because Kerala, South India, sits alone, very far from the other Christian nations, very, very far. You have nothing but the Indian Ocean. So the Christianity was almost dying until my people arrived and revived the dying church there. But again, this is why I'm here, and this is why I've been invited to this meeting, because what is happening now in those certain regions cannot be hidden. I cannot stay silent about this, about what is going on within India, within Pakistan, and other Southeast Asian countries. We are also people, the Assyrians, that have been reduced. Not naturally, but by deliberate attacks, again and again and again, 100 years. It's just continued over the years. And while these persecutions take place among the minorities, especially the Assyrians, we remember one thing from the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 20. Our Lord did not promise, Jesus did not promise safety. This is something that we always have to remember. He said, if they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. So someone perfect and good, like our Lord Jesus Christ, if they persecuted him, then they will definitely persecute us. So there will be persecution. This is something that we can, sadly to say, we cannot avoid. There will be persecution, but the Lord gave us a remedy. He said, take heart, because in the world you will have tribulation, but take heart because I have overcome the world. But this is where our comfort lies, not in the absence of suffering. We have to remember this, but in one that's already taken place. Even though these persecutions take place, we have to remember that the Lord has endured and has overcome this himself. To get into more detail, I'm going to name these, if this is okay, because we have to name these minorities so people know who they are. Of course, my own people, the Assyrians. Now, between 1914 and 1924, what we call Seyfo, Seyfo, we call this the year of the sword, because around 250 to 300,000 Assyrians were killed. 300,000 roughly were killed during this persecution. You can definitely call this a genocide. Now, this was roughly our nation, because there are not many of us Assyrians still around. Even our patriarch, Marshamun Benyamin. He was assassinated in 1918 while under a fake, we can call this a flag of truce. Flag of truce. And it happened alongside the Armenian and the Greek genocides also. We have another persecution. We can say this was a genocide as well amongst our people. In 1933, Semele, Simele, and this happened under the radical Kurdish regime. Now, hundreds more killed in northern Iraq in a matter of days. We have 2014 in Syria. On the 23rd of February in 2015, ISIS attacked 36 Assyrian villages along the Khabur River, a very famous river that's written in the Bible. And this is where our people dwelt. So we have persecution after persecution. And they forget, the extremists forget that we are the indigenous people of our homeland. And we have no rights. There needs to be some sort of consideration and mercy. We have 2003, we cannot forget, in Iraq. More than 70 churches were attacked and bombed and dozens of priests killed and kidnapped. Iraq, 2003. This was the worst single attack that took place at Our Lady of Salvation Cathedral in Baghdad on the 31st of October in 2010, where again 58 people were killed during a mass. We cannot forget last year in 2025 in Duhok in northern Iraq, a radicalized man, of course ISIS, attacked Assyrians celebrating the Assyrian New Year on the 1st of April. He was attacked, injured, and he was sentenced to life in prison that January. So I say all these things and I share all this information just so you know exactly what takes place on our indigenous homeland. And you might think this is history, but this is more than history. It's happening now. We have 2014 as well. I forgot to mention this one, ISIS. They used to paint the Arabic letter Noon on Christian doors in Mosul. So the Noon represents Nasrani, which means the followers of Jesus. So they would paint the letter Noon on Christian doors, either to pay tax, leave, or die. 3 options we had: leave, pay tax, or die. For the first time in roughly 1600 years, there was no liturgy, no church service in that city. It doesn't end there, because the Assyrians are one minority only. Then we have the Yazidi community, not the Assyrian, the Yazidi. People don't know who these people are. The Yazidi community are also one of the most ancient minorities of that region. In 2014 at Sinjar, around 5,000 men were killed. And just recently here in Australia, we had their commemoration about 4 hours away from Sydney, where they commemorated the attack. They called it a genocide. Nations also labeled it and have confirmed that this was a genocide, and today still people are missing from this attack. We have another religious community called the Mandaeans. These all belong to that region, the Mesopotamian region, one of the oldest religious traditions surviving on earth, and they revere John the Baptist, not Jesus. They revere John the Baptist, but still a persecution and attack is still, it's considered horrific, and no human should ever experience anything like this. And again, about 61,000 people in Iraq before 2003. 61,000 in Iraq before 2003. Now, if you count the numbers today, it's nowhere near. There are only a few thousands today. We have a small community here in Australia. Now, Sydney holds one of the largest Mandaean communities today, and they're scared. They're scared because this persecution has arrived on Australian shores as well. I'm sure you've heard in 2014, a clergyman, a radicalized terror member he walked into a church service and he took the eye out of a bishop. I'm sure you're well aware of Bishop Mari. He was attacked. He was from our community as well, and he was stabbed. And we have the Bondi attacks as well. So persecution has, and these attacks on minorities. Again, the Jewish community. They're a community they're considered minorities here in Australia. So it was, of course, it was a Hanukkah holiday, and 15 people were killed. A child was there. A rabbi was there. It was a deadly attack on Australian shores. Now, why I'm here? Of course, it was when I done some research on the Christian minorities that were living in Lahore and also the city of Okara in Pakistan. And I noticed there's a lot of Christians in Pakistan, and I did not know this, of course. I knew we had history there. I knew we revived the church in India and Pakistan, but I did not know there were still Christians that were existing in large numbers. Now, of course, Christians are minorities in India and Pakistan, but the numbers are great. If they compared and gathered all together, the numbers were great. It was when I done some research on Maria Shabazz, a 12-year-old girl. I'm sure you're very familiar with the case. July last year, she was taken from her home in Lahore and by a man in his 30s and was forced to convert and to change her faith. And we all know the story of what happened to Maria Shabazz. And when it reached the Pakistani Federal Constitution Court, the court granted custody to her abductor. And as a Christian, especially a priest, this was very concerning. So my heart and my love for the Christians within India and Pakistan grew much more. And if you follow my social media, I pay a lot of attention to what's going on in these certain cities. And it's not only the Christians as well. I reach out to the beloved Hindus, because also the Hindus have been persecuted in certain areas. So I speak on behalf of the Christians and also the Hindus as well. Forged, fake certificates and delayed reports. We can name them all. I mean, we have Maria Shabazz, you have Humar Yunus in Karachi, you have Arzu Raja, Farah Shaheen, Sana John, Maria Safraz. All these names, they're beautiful children, boys and girls that belong to parents, to families. The list goes on and on and on. And it's not only in Pakistan, it's in India as well. And who knows where else these persecutions and abductions occur. Again, as an Assyrian priest from Sydney, speaking about a girl in Lahore is horrific, because I recognize this method. I know what persecution consists of, because my people have been persecuted. And where do we go from here? I think what we need to do is, this is perfect, from remembrance to action. And the title of this meeting is absolutely perfect, from remembrance to action. So we need to do something about this persecution that's continuous. And now, before I continue, Furqan, would you like to allow Doctor to speak as well, or how do we? Yeah.
I mean, it could be the factors if Professor Imtiaz could take it from there.
No, thank you for the Temmo. Nice listening to you. I'm a little bit familiar of some of the things that you were saying. My take on the issue would be much broader, and I want to theorize as to why the minorities, throughout the world are not having a good time. Why that is so? Of course, there are cases where the minorities are facing much more, intense pressure in the life and living. So there are differences, of course, but still, overall, why the minorities are facing, this wrath, if you can say. Let me highlight three things and then from there we can take over the discussion. One is one has to look into the structure of the modern state, or what we call modernity, and the modern state, and the Eurocentric understanding of the world. The modern state, gradually became majoritarian. Now you can blame the election system, for that matter, because majority becomes an issue in winning election, whatever it is, and then you have the territorial structure of modern state. So, in fact, I wrote a book called "The Birth of Minority." The birth of minority is not responsible for its birth. It's the majority community which creates conditions for the birth of minority. That's the point. The majority community alienates the minority in a way that makes the minority come up, and from their suffering, of course. And that is the issue. So one cannot talk about minority without talking about the majority community. They are dialectically connected. That's the point. So we need to look into the modern state. We look into the state, the constitution, the state structure, of course, the kind of election that takes place, and most of the world followed the Westphalian system of statehood, and we have seen that even in Europe, it has not really worked. In all the three great wars, if you take the Napoleonic War and the First World War and the Second World War, well, the minorities got the bashing, in all the three big wars. And then that tells you, and to a point, that most of those conflicts were very genocidal. So to live with everyone, to live with all humans, I'm not trying to say that there was no conflict before modern state. Of course, there were conflict, but not on the basis of being a minority. That's the other thing. And Father, you have rightly pointed out of your existence, of how you came about, and the suffering that your community is now facing. So you try to push the thing to the modern state. Do we have an alternative? Have we thought out of the box? Are there any innovation of how this modern state or the postmodern state ought to be? That is where I think we need to invest, because it's very difficult at this stage even now, because the modern state, if you look at our syllabus, educational institute syllabus, for example, in the schools, is highly majoritarian. It talks about the heroes and heroines of the majority community, not of the minority community. There may be an exception here and there, but whether in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or in India, name any countries, even in South Asia, if you look at the textbook, and I worked on the textbooks of South Asia, we had a project, and if I'm not wrong, some of the members from Karachi University was involved at one stage, and I have a good number of Pakistani friends. I'm sure Furqan would know Sabah Khatak. Sabah was involved in that project. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not an exception of minority bashing, whether in Pakistan or in the US, or it's everywhere. And one has to look into the scale. Maybe the scales are different. That I will agree. But the majority community's own way of reproducing itself creates that condition. So we need to think of this modern state. It has not been with us for too many years. The birth of modern state, some will start from 1648, Treaty of Westphalia. You can stretch it to maybe 1555, which is a Peace of Augsburg. But before that, there was no modern state in that sense of the word. This Eurocentric understanding of the world has created a kind of a majority-minority, to the point that the minority is facing a hard time. And how to recover from there is something of a challenge that we all need to invest. The second point is the globalization of minority bashing. That's you can see. Look at the United States, for example. Where you have a serious minority bashing, particularly of the Black Americans. Most of the homicides that take place, and I was looking into some of the figures. They have a population in the United States of 14% only, but when it comes to homicide victims, it's 54.4%. Look at it, and as you know, the United States has largest number of prisoners in the world. and bulk of the prisoners are black, although their population is only 14%. So even a developed country like United States, and of course a superpower, has ended up, in a very bad shape. So it's not the question of development or underdevelopment. It can happen in developed country as much as in a developing country. Once you get into this modernity and modern state, and where you divide the communities into majority and minority, because it helps your election. It helps in a lot of interesting things. The third thing that I want to flag, apart from globalization, and of course, India would be also an interesting case, where with BJP and Hindutva, you can see there has been a serious what you call decline in the tolerance that was once cherished in democratic India, and then they have perfect. Their election has been quite extraordinary. Such a big 1.3 billion people, having the largest democratic election in the world, but still, when it comes to minority bashing, somehow they have not succeeded, and it has not really. It's not going up. It's declining. There's more intolerance now than probably that was there, maybe 20 or 30 years back. So as I say, it doesn't matter whether you are developing or developed. You can have a bad situation. The third one I want to flag is not an issue of interfaith conflict. Yes, there is a little bit of interfaith, but that has almost got reconciled, because I think the faith, they understand, what is their, what you call, the kind of structure that they have in terms of their, the books that they have, the prophets that they have, the kind of what you call the narrative that they have of their religion. Yes, some of the narrative may have got either erased or may not have come up, and I think Father Tim was mentioning that some of its community's narratives have not flagged as much it should be. That may be the case, but more or less, the big faith, if I can say, big ones, they understand each other. I think what is happening is not so much interfaith conflict as much as intra-faith conflict within the faith, within the Muslim community, for example, within the Hindu community, for example. For the Hinduism is an interesting one. As you know, it's a non-conformist religion. It's not a conformist religion, but slowly they are making a non-conformist into a conformist religion. So you have a Hindutva now. So there's a difference between Hinduism and Hindutva. So it would be a case of Judaism. If you take Judaism, it's very non-conformist. The very statement, there was a very famous statement that if there are 3 Jews, there are 4 opinions. That was what Jewish what you call knowledge house was all about. There was more democracy within, but that has now become problematic with Zionism, which is very conformist. And so even some Jews will say that we are not Zionists. Zionism is totally different. So you see in every religion, and even within the Muslim community, of course, there's a issue between Shia and Sunni, but that also got settled in many ways. Not all, but in many ways. But within the Sunni, within the Shia, there are different interpretations and conflict. Whether Republican system one should follow the Sunnah in the tradition, or whether you have a monarchy, which is also problematic in Islam. So what I'm saying, that intra-faith has become much more intolerant, and that is where we are not investing when it comes to resolving this issue. We are still busy with the interfaith and not really getting into intra-faith discourse, whether it is between the Salafi understanding of Islam or the Hanafi understanding of Islam, if I can, or the Sufi understanding of Islam. Look at the differences. So I think that is where our curriculum is lacking, our knowledge is lacking. I remember I ended up writing a small piece on, it's a kind of a booklet on Sufi and Sufism, and trying to say, when Sufi becomes Sufism, then how problematic it becomes. Because the moment it becomes ism, the politics gets inside. So Sufi and being Sufism are not same. And so I try to debate that quite a lot. And my final thing is the decline in the spiritual scholarship. That is very important. Also, I need to flag there has been a serious decline. A lot of people will know the rituals. They know the rituals well, but not the theology, the philosophy, the cosmos. That is missing, and unfortunately. So if you are into medical science, well, the fellow would know the rituals, but not the full discourse that goes on with the religion. It's a very complex issue. You need to get into it. It doesn't matter whatever your discipline is all about. My discipline is international relations, but I had always what you call comparative religion was one of my area of what you call I invested a lot on that. And but very few IR person would do that, because he thinks, oh, IR, it's a secular discourse and all. But you can't divide. As I said, everything is connected. So I think the decline in the spiritual, I don't want to use the word religious scholarship, but even the spiritual scholarship, it's such a serious. We don't know each other so much. For me, I was maybe lucky. When I was in school, I was in St. Joseph's. So I'm a Josephite in that sense. So I was familiar with Christianity long before my interest in comparative religion, and that makes a difference. Knowing the other religions. Now we don't venture in knowing other religions. That's the problem. I try to know only my religion. Now that's not a good way of understanding the other, because you must know yourself and you also must know the other. Otherwise, you can't create a tolerance. Also, you cannot create a space for your spirituality to get respected. So I think there's a serious issue there, is that we have become very insular in that. We only pride in our own and not try to read all the text that is available. And I think I will say all the religious texts are extraordinary. The time that they got evolved, and the time when it came, it's something that has always excited me. When it comes to knowledge, that is also very, 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 very missing. We have become too much of a what I call we try to know only what we have without knowing the other. And even if we know the other, we know the other in a very negative way, not with respect and not with the kind of tolerance that is required. So there is a decline when it comes to tolerance in our scholarship. So I will stop there, and I'm open to questions and further interactions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Imtiaz, for bringing like theoretical and comparative analysis of and you very well connected today's theme with. I also would like to leave two questions for two of our speakers. You said that the presence of majoritarianism or the presence of authoritarian regime is causing the treatment of minorities, right? So I also would like to give you floor. Even you could both take those questions. I mean, in terms of pattern of marginalization or pattern of persecution in terms of South Asian countries, how would you rate? I mean, if we talk about Sri Lanka, Pakistan, or maybe India. I mean, when I say, I mean, because I'm also one of the students of minority studies as well. I see Pakistan in a different way when it comes to its treatment of minorities. I can say, I can contend that in terms of its support, Pakistan always does well in terms of uplifting the voices of minorities. The persecution that has been perpetrated against them, I must say, is not a government-based or a state-based policy. It's an individual act that has been committed and which is very wrong. Perhaps I would say the implementation part, that's where the government lags, right? While in terms of India, I mean, you see the pattern, as you said, rightly pointed out, the rise of Hindutva nationalism, or the entire umbrella of nationalism is causing the suffering or the bashing of minorities when it comes to the policy. Take the example of recent policies of how India is trying to reshape the curriculum. How they are trying to changed the names of their even ministries as well. Take the example from Home Ministry, or they've changed, replaced it with Grah Mantralaya, right? With these connotations. So they try to infuse the entire narrative, plus the 360-degree attacks that Dalits and other minority, even Christians, face in terms of Ghar Wapsi program, which is Return Home, for those who converted to Christianity from Hinduism or perhaps from Islam, or those who have converted from Hinduism to become Dalits or Christians. So I would like your point or your take on that as well. Plus, there's another angle that we need to look at, is that we still carry the legacy of colonialism that we have been facing. We have been ruled by white supremacists. We have been under the Kosh during their colonial era as well. So I won't want to take much of your time. So I'll give the floor to you to respond to this question, and also Father Temmo can add as well. And also one more point. I'm sorry, I'm missing out. I always raise this question to our Christian theologians and fathers and those who work on Christianity. That what is are there any efforts that have been made to work on the treatment of Christians of South Asia as compared to the Christians living in the West or Eastern part of the world as well?
The problem with Mediterraneanism and the very structure of modern state is something that we have been unable to do, to make changes. Somehow we are stuck with the Eurocentric understanding of the world. It's only now, with the multipolar world coming up, and with globalization, and with some other powers becoming very important, including, of course, China in a big way, but you also have Brazil, of course, you have Turkey, so we are for the first time, the world is moving to a multipolar world, which was not there. We had multipolarity in areas, maybe in Europe, in South Asia, in Africa, but we never had multipolarity globally. And that, I think, is going to impact very much, because you are going to get the civilizational doses from each of these polars, and then there will be a lot of mixed match. So to give, China would be an interesting example, with 1.3 billion people, is bound to impact the entire world as it re-rises. Don't forget, it's a re-rise for China, because back in the 18th century, it was the largest economy in the world in any way, and undivided India or South Asia was the second largest economy back in 18th century. We lost out, or China also lost out in 19th and 20th century, but in 21st they are re-rising. And in some respect also, some of the South Asian countries, although we are divided, and I think that's the reason why it's taking time. But what we think, the colonial discourse is very important, given that bulk of the world was colonized and the education system got into that. And so we have an education which is highly colonized education curriculum. We know more about the West than we know about ourselves. I can talk about Shakespeare, for hours, but I don't think any Westerner would can talk of our poet for hours. That's the problem. Okay, so somehow that Mediterraneanism that is very much embedded further got reproduced with the kind of electoral system that we literally got from the West uncritically, if I say. We did not have our own kind of electoral or governance system, and then be it Pakistan or India, everywhere. Now, Pakistan would be a good example, because if you remember, of course, the partition, a lot of both the religions, the religion was used in the partition. But if you look at the first speech that Muhammad Ali Jinnah gave, where he said that from today Hindus will cease to be Hindus and the Muslim will cease to be Muslim. We are all Pakistani. Remember that? I think it was very well placed speech by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. But then it did not work, and within 25 years, Pakistan broke up because on the issue of language, because Bengalis or Bangladeshis said no, we can't be what you are trying to do. So Majoritarianism is one thing, and as I said, we need to brainstorm a lot because we haven't come up with different models. We have to go back to civilization and see what we can do. And believe it or not, we are in an extraordinary time where it's possible to go back to civilization in a big way. And some of these countries are civilizationally extraordinary. Take Pakistan. You can go to Taxila they can go back to 1,000 years. Just imagine, So when I talk to United States, when they say about the state, I said, when did you start? Well, 18th century comes. Come on. 18, I can go to 6th century BC. So then they get worried. Oh my God. I say, yes, I can go back to 6th century BC. So point is, that's part of it, which I think needs to be, we need to engage in creative thinking. How to get out of it, and it can be done in one day. The second point, whether it's Sri Lanka, with the Tamils and the Senalis, of course, in Pakistan and then in India in a big way. Look how democratic election has reproduced the kind of the religious intolerance that we see in India today. I'll give you some figures which will make you, which will make it clear to some extent. You see, when BJP this time, with Mr. Narendra Modi, when they won the election, he only got 34% of popular vote, but got 2/3 majority. That means in the first time when he became prime minister, they got only 34%, but got 2/3 majority. That means 66% are not with them, but the 66% are divided. So look at, it's not a majority, we say it's a majority government. It's not a majority government. It's 34%. Next election, the BJP raised it by 2%, 36%, and got 2/3 majority. The third time, this time, again got 36%, but lost 0.9%, just 0.9%, and they did not get the 2/3 majority. This time they had to do a coalition, just by 0.9%. Now, if you look all the three elections, 66% are not with them. But then we say, oh, this is democracy. We need to rethink, what is this democracy? What is this majority rule about? It's not majority. So Gandhi had an interesting statement on as you know, Gandhi was very much against this Western election system. And he said, and I'm quoting Mahatma Gandhi, he said, what it means is 51% can impose its will on 49%, and I am against it. But that is 51%. You don't need 51%. You need 34 to 36% to win election and get 2/3 majority. Now, somebody must say, hello, this is not majority. Yes, you have created a structure, and now you know how to get 34 to 36%. How do you get that? Well, you create the religious issues and you get their support. Same thing in Bangladesh, same thing in Pakistan, same thing everywhere. Some element you use, and religious issues are very emotive, as you know. It can address, easy to understand, and that has become a problem. So we need to work on this to the point of looking into our civilizational discourse to see what tolerance was there, how the tolerance structures came about, because I don't think the Western kind of a structure is going to help you much. It has not helped even the West. Look at the United States now. After 200 years, look at what the situation. So I don't think Donald Trump is an exception. I think that will be the new normal in the U.S. Politics, unless they change the electoral system. My last point that you have raised on the issue of individual acts and all, yes, governance is an issue. There's no doubt about it. Or misgovernance is an issue. But keep in mind, the misgovernance, there's the element of state's complicity. When something happens to the minority, whether consciously or unwittingly, there is a complicity of the state. That has to be resolved. That we need to get out of it. And unfortunately, our mind is very much, I would say, very insular. It's not open to the world, in fact. And although all the religions, they try to say, they open the world. Just see any books, and it will try to focus more on humanity, but the interpretation has gone in a different direction. So I still see hope, but you need to invest a lot. I think this is a good exercise that you are having, and bringing Father Team and yourself I think these are the things which should be more regular and more done in a way where this becomes much more talk of every platform. Then I think we can create tolerance and know each other. So I'm still hopeful that the world will be in a better shape, but we must keep on trying.
Yes, Father Timo, your take on that. I mean, so sorry, we've gone taken a lot of time so already. So I would want you to come up with the responses, perhaps, or would like to add, or would like to ameliorate anything that before we going towards the end.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Doctor. I really appreciate your information. Absolutely. Moving forward, we can sit here and I can tell you about all the issues that occur in the Middle East and Asia, but we'll be here until tomorrow. The issue that moving forward, what we can do as minorities is, of course, make our voices heard. Make our voices heard, but this is also a double-edged sword because raising your voice could also instigate problems further. And if on the other side, it could be a benefit because more people recognize what is going on and create support. Now, I use Lebanon as a very good example of how a country should be governed in terms of respecting the indigenous minorities. Now, if we look at Lebanon, the prime minister is a Christian. The president or prime minister is a Christian, and then you have the political members of different faiths. I believe there are a few from the Jewish religion, and the others are, of course, from the Islamic branch, Islamic faith. Now, this is beautiful because when politicians come to the table, the essence or the foundation of gathering together is love. And love exists within all religions, all faiths, even atheists. I mean, bring an atheist to the table and he will tell you that love is real. So if we come together in all honesty, just to understand who the minorities are of that country, what are their necessities, what do they need, and then we take it back that far. So, for example, the leadership within Pakistan, what needs to be done is a full census of who the minorities are, how many people are there. It could be indigenous minorities, it doesn't have to be Christians, and analyze and understand what they need. Because they're the minorities, we need to understand what they need. And this was, of course, this structure has always been around for early, ancient history, and of course we can, at the beginning of time. When a foreign group enter a country, the first thing is, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? That's the first question. That is, what's your intentions? Why are you here? So when Pakistanis, the majority, of course, being of the Islamic faith, they need to understand what the Christians want. Where did they come from? Why are they there? How do they worship? What do they need from the land? And this is how you move forward. Because if they request, okay, we need everybody to leave and let this country be only for this is not possible, of course. So they're a minority. So they need to understand what they want. And then we move into the political field where honesty is the key to running a government. There needs to be some sort of ambassador, some sort of advocate for the minorities allowed in the political field, specifically in Pakistan and India as well. I'm sure that there is. I know there is. I really don't know his name. I believe he's a counselor in Pakistan as well. He does a great job as well for the Christians there. I'm not sure. You might know what his name is, but he does a wonderful job in advocating for the Christian cause. And so that's the first thing that needs to happen. If worse comes to worse, which it is, we need to probably establish a lobby, an international lobby that could take care of these situations. Something that really takes I could say, the pressure of the United Nations, because of course the United Nations would not respond instantly to an attack or some sort of issues that are going on within these countries. So we need some sort of a lobby within these countries to make the world know all these problems that are occurring within these countries. There's so many more steps that we can take. It's very deep. It's very deep, of course, but to what's being said, this is, of course, the result of colonialism. This is what we get. And Anthony Navid, yes, as a speaker, yes, that's correct. You've written it down in the chat, correct. This is the result of colonialism. Now, if we're talking Islamic colonialism, the Western colonialism, Christian colonialism, colonialism is really colonialism in however way you look at this. But respect for the minorities is something that should be very basic under the branch of love, the branch of respect. It's nothing more to it, of course. I don't want to take too much of your time, of course.
Yeah, thank you so much, Father Temmo, for first of all coming in to our platform and accept the offer of our invitation for the first time ever. We are truly lucky and blessed to have your presence. And as always, we are truly grateful to Professor Imtiaz Ahmed for bringing in such a theoretical perspective of the topic today. And I mean, we often talk about, I consider him as a mentor in terms of his entire scholarship. I closely watch his work, and it was a reason to bring him on board because I knew he would be bringing some quality stuff in terms of the content or the relevant content that he always embeds in terms of his expertise. And also, what we have heard today reminds us that religious freedom is not only about freedom to worship. It is also about dignity, equality, security, and the ability of every individual to live without fear because of their religion or belief, or even of their ethnicity. Last point, you've talked about that there should be a mechanism to understand how much number of individuals requires to be considered as minorities, right? Whether it's Pakistan or whether it's, I would say, India or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh. Because in India, there are like more than 30 million of Dalits living in India. They're still considered as minority. Should we also look at towards the process of redefining minority population or identity politics? That's what you talked about. I always encourage my colleagues and peers, those who are from non-Islamic faith, or those who are Christians and Hindus, to always take the political route instead of because we lack representation, whether it's in Pakistan, whether it's in India, whether it's in Sri Lanka. We don't have much of representation in terms of Christians or Hindus as well. Although we do have, I remember Justice Rana Bhagwan Das was a Supreme Court judge, and he was also the chairman of Federal Public Service Commission, which is a very, very august platform where we where we do the process of selecting bureaucracy as well. As mentioned in my chat, we are truly honored to have Brother Anthony Naveed as a Speaker of Sindh Assembly as well. There are things that are being done in bits and pieces. You said we need to really look at how we can go from there. Maybe we can sit. Yeah, and thank you so much, Professor Ahmed and Father Temmo, for acknowledging the small efforts that SARIM is doing in terms of collecting voices from different angles. We were before I guess 4 years. We were just limited to South Asia. We have now expanded our footprints at a global level as well. I remember I was in South Korea, Seoul last year, where I presented papers on minorities as well. I chaired sessions. I have been discussing through this. So I tried to expand whatever I could in terms of giving policies to what needs to be done in terms of improvement. We also have been recruiting people from minority communities in our own organization as well. So I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time. So just like 1 minute or 30 seconds for your closing remarks, and then we can finish things off. Especially the redefining the minority population.
Okay. No, good that Father Tim was mentioning Lebanon. I used to offer a course almost for 8 years in Lebanon before the pandemic, and then of course the war started, and I used to go every year for 8 years, and so I know Lebanon. A good number of students for many years. Now, Lebanon is an interesting case, and good that you brought up, because I think if things can be resolved in Lebanon, I believe one can resolve it in the rest of the world. Now, why I say that? Because Lebanon, I don't know whether you are aware, the last census they had was in 1932. After that, there was no census. They don't want to do any census anymore. Now, on the basis of 1932 census, they came to the agreement that Father Tim was mentioning, where the president will be a Maronite Christian, and then the speaker will be from the Shia community, and the prime minister will be from the Sunni community. Now, the reason was quite simple, because they were more or less 30, 30, 30, that was the kind. But then, if you look at the demography of Lebanon today, they have 6 million people, but almost 8 million people live abroad, including the famous singer Shakira. She's also Lebanese, okay, but they live in South America. A lot of Lebanese, they live in South America. In fact, majority people of Lebanon live outside than inside. Now, if you look at the composition, and this is where Hezbollah's point is that if it is a democracy, why didn't you give election on the basis of demography? Because over the years, the Shia community became the majority. They now hold, I was checking online, they now have 32.2% of the population, whereas Sunnis are 31.2%, and Mennonite Christians are 30%. So the contention is that if you want to play the Westphalian system, why don't you, have the census? Now, they don't want to do the census, because if there's a census, then immediately the Shia will become the majority. And for that purpose, they can become the president of Lebanon. Because I think the idea was not so much of Christian, was who was the majority at that time. So the president, the beginning when Lebanon came into being, and based on 1932 census, but after 1932 there is no census. So when I talk to students in Lebanon, in fact, and I can see the difficulty of coming out of the Westphalian paradigm, the modernity, and that is where I was for last 8 years I was engaged in telling, because I used to teach La Sagis University, which is a Christian university, and I taught for last 8 years, so I was familiar with the issues, and tried my best to see whether we can come up with an out of box thinking. Now, as I say, that the colonial discourse, the majoritarian discourse, the Eurocentric discourse got stuck, and that is where we need to free ourselves and do something different, where we can create more tolerance. And there too, I found the intra contestation more problematic than inter contestation, because the inter, they understand each other pretty well. So I think a platform like this, maybe I would, if Dr. Ahmed can also make what you call programs on the intra conflict or intra intolerance, why that is so, and what can be done to create a tolerance, because as I say, our syllabus doesn't help that much. Our syllabus is highly political and highly majoritarian. So we need to work very hard. But I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that humans can make a difference once they can identify the problem. Thank you.
Thank you for the beautiful outro. And absolutely, yes, there's platforms like this. SARIM is wonderful to raise the voices of all the minorities, and a lot of things could be done. A lot of things could be done on the political stage as well. And I believe the more voices we have within the political field that can advocate for the minorities, it will make a very, very, very big difference. Even having Lebanon, of course, what you said about 1932, absolutely in regards to the census. The issue is, for example, if we take a new founded country, for example, that is building its laws and building its rules, you have to take the minorities into consideration and have someone advocate for that community. But those laws and those rules that govern the internal side of things within that religion should not affect the political and the mass population, but only for them. So, for example, if there are, let's say, 100 men that have arrived from a different foreign land, and they have entered into, let's use Australia as an example, you respect their religious views, you respect their faith to a point where it does not affect the government, does not affect the other people. A good example is the indigenous Aboriginal community here in Australia. Of course, I'm sure you're familiar with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. Their faith, their religion, their belief, their history is respected to the point where there's no interference. No one is allowed to interfere. And of course, after every speech, at the beginning of every speech, we honor the indigenous people of that land. Now, this does not happen, of course, within certain countries that I would love for the indigenous minorities of that land to be respected to that point. But what needs to be, of course, done is a member of on the political stage being forcefully put there just to put things in check for the minorities. So moving forward, I think there's a lot of organizations like SARIM, as I know a few as well, who are advocating and raising awareness upon the issues that are caused by the minority people. So
thank you so much once again, Father Temmo and Professor Imtiaz, for a profound and a very comprehensive responses and contribution towards today's discourse. We would have been more luckier if we would have been joined by Cardinal Coates. He might have got busy because he told me that he will be traveling to Lahore or something. Perhaps Dr. Mike Post couldn't join because of the time, because he did commit. He was sure that he will be joining, but I don't know what happened. We'll try to get a hold of them if we get a recorded video from their end to make it like more justified and balanced. But I'm truly grateful to you for putting in as a panel discussion sort of mode. We've shifted gears in terms of perspective to perspective. So thank you so much once again for the team. We're really impressed with your journey, with the way your positionality as an Aboriginal and Indigenous minorities. I'm also an Indigenous Sindhi, so I know the positionality and the importance of raising important voice and perhaps the responses that we get for doing that. So it's a message once again. The journey from remembrance to action requires collective responsibility. As you said, governments, institutions, civil society, religious leaders like you, academics like Dr. Professor Imtiaz, media, obviously, and ordinary citizens all have a role to play in terms of raising their voices and bringing solutions. Positivity is the key. I like the way Professor Ahmed remained positive throughout his life and his journey. He always advocated positivity and optimistic approach. Let us continue creating spaces for dialogue, understanding, and a peaceful coexistence, and let us ensure that the right of every person, regardless of religion and belief, are respected and protected. Once again, on behalf of SARIM, thank you to our esteemed speakers and to everyone who joined us today. Thank you very much, and stay safe, stay connected, and let us continue working together for equality, religious freedom, peace, and human dignity across South Asia and beyond, and till in Australia as well. It's my favorite country in terms of cricketing, affiliation as well. So we would love to have you once. Yeah,
we're very
we would
good at
love to
cricket.
have. Yeah, we would love to have you, sir, once again on our platforms.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.